This is Tax Pro Nation, the home of independent tax professionals. Find community, maximize your earnings, and live life on your own terms. I'm your host, Jeff Dolan, Vice President of Pronto Tax School.
And I'm your co-host, Andy Fry, founder and CEO of Pronto Tax School.
As a tax professional, you take pride in giving the best service you can to every client you serve. Too often, your good work goes unnoticed. Too often, your story goes untold. No more. Unnoticed and untold ends now. Welcome to Season 2, the Season of Story, where it's all about recognizing and appreciating you, the hardworking tax professionals that inhabit the mysterious land known as Tax Pro Nation.
In this episode, we are going to be hearing from Joel Harworth. He is a 20-year financial services veteran and loved the idea of helping clients with their taxes, so he actually purchased a tax business in 2020. So we can't wait for you to hear this conversation with Joel, and let's jump in.
Welcome to the latest installment of Tax Pro Nation, and we're really focused on telling the stories of tax professionals. You know, we are kind of a unknown, some would say a mysterious bunch of people. We come from all different walks of life, and so just getting a chance in this season 2 of the podcast to actually sit down with our fellow tax professionals and, you know, learn about how they got into the business, you know, what is their story and what can we learn from their stories. And so right now we're privileged to have on Joel Harworth. Welcome to the show, Joel. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, absolutely. It's our pleasure to have you on. And I wanted to just kind of recognize you for having one of the most awesome nicknames. We went through, as part of our story contest results, like what was your favorite nickname that you ever had? And you had one of the best ones. You actually won an Amazon gift card as a result of this. And I believe your nickname, correct me if I'm wrong, was Cowhide?
Cowhide, that's right. So when I was 6th, 7th grade, I was about 6'1". I probably weighed about $140, but I wore a size 12 shoe. And I grew up a basketball player. That's really what I wanted to do. So of course my mom and dad would take me we'd go to Big Five, and I'd say, I need a pair of high tops because I'm going to be playing basketball all the time. So inevitably the only pair of shoes that would be available were size 12, and they were pretty much always black, which makes my feet look even bigger. So giant high tops on, and I'd run around the whole school. And one of the football coaches came up with that, as it took an entire side of beef to make those shoes for me.
Yeah, the football coaches, for some reason, they always got those kind of jokes or the different nicknames. So they were probably was he trying to talk you into playing football? Was that like a sideways compliment kind of thing?
You know, they never really talked about me playing football, probably because I was so skinny. So they probably just left that alone.
Right. It was more just something to tease you. And we talked about with a couple of other guests. I mean, at the end of the day, as adults, we're all big kids in a way. You know, we're all like a version of what we were as kids. How did having that nickname, Joel, and also having that, you know, that larger height at a younger age, how did how you grew up and who you were as a kid impact, you know, who you are today as a tax professional?
So, in being that tall, and like I said, I just wanted to play basketball. I wanted to play basketball in high school with my brother. He was 3 years older than me, so when I was going to become a freshman, he was going to be a senior. That's really what I wanted to do. And then play, try to get to, you have the dreams at that age of being an NBA player. Obviously, since we're talking right now, that didn't happen. But I was always playing sports, basketball, baseball, soccer, so it was always kind of team-oriented, helping each other out, looking out for one another. So that's really what, kind of my upbringing was. So it was always about kind of the team. And even in the family at home, we watched a lot of basketball, watched a lot of baseball. My mom would sneak into the kitchen to start making dinner, and I would go in there with her. I'd say, hey, Mom might need some help. So I'd go in and start cooking with her from, even when I was 7 or 8, doing the little stuff in the kitchen with her, just trying to help her out.
So that teamwork ethic, it sounds like, is something that you really have brought to your career. And to me, it feels like, especially for us independent tax professionals and maybe not working at a big company, that, people that operate by a lone wolf mentality, and kind of contrast that with your teamwork ethic. How does looking at things as a teammate, how does that make you a better tax professional as opposed to some people who do view it as kind of more of a lone wolf, profession?
It took me a long time to adjust. I became independent only 4 years ago. So these last 4 years, it's been really tough. I was in an office with a couple people. We were really independent in the end of the day. We shared the name, but just recently I moved to my own, Connect Tax and Wealth Management, my own name. And it was a little hard at first to kind of get adjusted to it because I was looking for teammates, and just being by yourself, it's a little bit more difficult. But I then kind of shifted my thought process to I'm going to team up with my client, and we are going to be a team, and we are going to get whatever it is that you need taken care of. And I tell all of my clients, if you have a situation that I can't take care of, we're going to find somebody that can. And I don't care what that is. I've had people that need work on their house, so I start asking contractors and say, hey, find a good contractor. So I get a recommendation and get a contractor in there to help somebody work on their house. So in the end of the day, anything my clients need assistance with, I want to be the best teammate possible to help them with anything they need, even if it's not the set agenda that we typically take care of.
I really love that. I love that approach. That's a really good way to look at it. Team up with your clients.
How did you end up getting into the tax business, Joel? So going from looking to play professional basketball and being very focused on sports and family and kind of those values that you talked about, how did you end up getting into the tax profession?
So I'll give you a little story from college. I wanted to play basketball. I ended up getting recruited to play volleyball at the University of Laverne. So I played volleyball there. We were playing kind of a Division I schedule. So we're playing the top teams of the nation, which kind of the place where I kind of wanted to be. Wanted to do it in basketball, but it worked out in volleyball. And middle of my sophomore year, I blew out my ACL. And that was probably one of the best things that happened to me because I was a athlete student at school and I wasn't a student athlete. I was lucky that I was always pretty good in school without having to study. I could get B's and C's no problem without putting in a lot of effort. So then I hurt myself and then said, you know what, I'm probably not going to do this for a living. So it really changed my thought of I need to get into, and I was always a business major. I love finance. I love numbers. So that, pushed me harder to the direction of business finance. And then from there, I got into the world of financial planning. So for the last 20 years, I've been a financial planner.
Okay.
And then talking to, and then being independent. So when I was the first 18 years or so, I was at a credit union, and it's pretty narrow. You work with the credit union members. You have your list of products and services that you provide, and you can't do a lot outside of that. Then switching gears to going independent 4 years ago, then it became, wow, you can do anything you want. You can add a side business. You can add taxes, which I wanted to do prior, but they wouldn't let me. So
right.
In October of last year, I found a lady that wanted to sell part of her business. So not having any licenses, any idea what I was doing, I said, I'm going to go buy this business. So I was buying, 120 clients. They're all just basic, W-2, 1040 type of returns, a couple small Schedule Cs. And so I just met up with her and said, hey, I want to buy your tax practice. And so we worked out all those deals. And then come January, I was like, apparently I need to get a CTAC and I need to get a PTIN. And luckily the lady that I purchased the business from kind of helped me with that a little bit. Said, hey, you need to get this and that. And one of the great things that she said, I said, I know you have to do this training stuff. Where do you get yours done? And she said, I go to Pronto Tax and get all my training done. And that was my introduction to you guys. And ever since then, I've been listening to you guys, watching your webinars, and trying to learn as much as I can about the business because this past was my first tax season. And, to be honest, I was really just learning on the fly.
Yep. Yeah, what a first tax season to have. I mean, the COVID-19 crisis tax season and, all the stimulus and all that. I mean, you really got thrown into the deep end on that. And it sounds like the lady that you're buying the business from is very intelligent, and a very good person. We're so happy to kind of have you as part of our network and our family. And what was that like to because I know that's something that a lot of members are thinking about as kind of there's a generation of tax professionals that are sort of looking to retire, looking to phase out their business and maybe sell it to somebody else or bring in a partner that's looking for an opportunity like you were, Joel. What was that process like to buy the business? And maybe even like, how did your teamwork mentality come into that? Because I know in buying somebody's business, I mean, you really kind of have to get on the same page with them. What did you learn during that process, and how did that go?
There's a lot of learning done. I can definitely say that. I have several friends that do tax, and so I was able to kind of get some information more after the fact that I bought it. But one of the things about being more of a team player is, when you talk about that, that lone wolf type of mentality, you have to come in. I came in and said, hey, can I partner with you and take over this, this portion of tax? She moved. She was moving to Arizona, so she was just relocating, and there was a lot of people that would want face-to-face. So that's kind of what I was doing. And to tell her, I'm here to, again, partner with your clients, partner with you, and make sure they get taken care of. It's not like I'm going to take those from you for a price. I was more say, hey, let me help you with this. And I was honest with her. I said, I'm going to need your help too, because as we sat there and we kind of finalized all the final numbers, I'm going to give her a bunch of money and get a bunch of clients that I literally I don't have a software. I don't have any of the stuff I need. I'm just doing it on the fly. And so she was not coming in with like, this is my business that I'm going to take from you. It's like, this is our business that we need to transition. So some of the things that I really learned about was, you have to build in a retention clause. I have a friend that he owns a couple H&R Blocks, and talking about buying businesses. I got a lot from him about retention clause and kind of building that. And then, just knowing that you're never going to get 100% of them. There's 100 clients that you're buying, there's going to be 10 to 15 that are just going to walk off, regardless of what you say, what you do. So you kind of have to plan for some of those contingencies as well.
Yeah, it definitely makes sense. And I know, if somebody's gone through that process, you definitely have a lot of learning along the way. And I think having those contacts of people that, have the information you need about stuff like retention clause, about stuff like getting on the same page with the existing owner, where they really know that you're going to take care of their clients, and that you're going to treat them the right way. I think that's just so crucial. For being a financial planner, I think a lot of people, there's such different variety of like what that means, right? If someone's like a CFP or if they're at a credit union or a bank, how does the financial planning side of what you do in your career, Joel, play into what you're now doing as a tax professional?
Well, it's a great combination. And so one of the things that made me a little bit more confident in buying that business, even though I didn't have, any experience, was the fact that she was going to provide some support. But after going through I immediately also listened to your guys' podcast where you go through the steps of how to build a tax career. And so I penciled all that out. I have a Word file that has all the steps. I have all the goals that I'm going to meet, and I could already check off, oh, you need to provide additional services. Well, I've got a boatload of additional services that I already provide. So the purchase of the tax business was really a means to provide clients to my financial planning business.
Nice.
I find it much easier to take a tax person because when I do their taxes, I can know a whole lot about them, right? I can already know, if they own a house, I can tell if they've done their estate planning because I'll know if they have a trust or not. I look at their W-2. I can tell if they have a 401k. Are they putting into it? How much are they putting into it? I can probably guesstimate what their 401k balance looks like if I know how long they've worked there. So I already have a couple pieces of the financial puzzle just looking at their tax documents. So it's really easy to say, okay, look, and then, so a lot of times if you just do taxes, it's, oh, we can, you should put into an IRA. You can go talk to somebody about that. There's some tax strategies. But then when you take it a step further and say, okay, you need to get a trust because, you're going to go to probate if you pass away. Or,
Right.
for your 401k, let's make sure that's invested correctly. A lot of the times I find people are invested very aggressively, maybe more than they should. When the market's going up, it's never an issue. It's only when it goes down that they tend to panic because they've been, invested too aggressively. So bringing those clients in as a tax client and then transitioning them to a financial client is a pretty simple way. And then obviously I had quite a few of my financial clients become tax clients. Because, oh, you do it now? I'd rather have it all done in one place. So it's a really good mix to be able to handle both sides.
Yeah, and we've actually been seeing among our members, one of the biggest trends that we've seen in recent years are members being able to combine that financial planning and financial services with taxes. And what would you say if somebody's thinking about doing that, Joel? Because I guess you kind of came from the financial planning side and then, added tax. A lot of people that are listening to this podcast, they might be in sort of the opposite situation where they're currently dealing with taxes, thinking about adding financial planning. What would you say is like one or two tips for making that work? Because there is a lot of anxiety for some tax professionals around, like clients not feeling like we're trying to sell them things that they're not like wanting, or, it's just like anxiety. So what would be like one or two success tips for combining those services?
Well, it goes back to the start of our conversation. It's finding a team, or a mentor. I've done this for 20 years, but there was a lot of years where, I started the first 2 or 3 years, I was assisting like 8 advisors. I was the back office. They would send me their paperwork. So I was able to talk to them and see how business was done. And then I became a junior advisor under one of our top reps and learned the business and really learned all the ins and outs of products and how things work. So it's a really hard, if you just buy a tax business and you start doing taxes, then you have that question of what do I do in this situation? And you don't have somebody to talk to. It's the same with financial planning. I'm in the position to grow right now. I want to add business taxes. I want to add bookkeeping, add somebody else that can do the financial planning. Is finding somebody like myself to say, get your license, and there's a certain order. I've been kind of building out kind of the situation you're talking about. I have a tax person, then what's the next thing to get? The next easiest thing to get is a life insurance license. And then the next thing, probably the easiest thing to get is a Series 65 license. With those two, you can do a lot of financial planning and a lot of different business just with those two. There's some studying, there's some tests you got to take, but there's a couple different paths that I've kind of built out to get tax side to then get to the, to be able to do some financial planning. But having somebody like myself to, I'd be happy to mentor people and say, hey, look, this is the type of products you should be looking at, and work out a case. If you have a situation, let's work out a case. Let's do a case study. Let's figure out what the best, products and services to talk to them. And in the end of the day, if you have that relationship that I know you guys kind of teach and build to say, it's a team. I'm just here to make things better. I don't feel like I sell anything. I feel like it's just like, look, if we do this is going to make you better. If they say no, they say no, but in the end of the day, they're going to trust you if you built that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a super interesting topic too, Joel, because as you have planned out kind of your strategy to build out those different services, I'm interested to hear what your thoughts are on getting those licenses yourself and building it out that way versus hiring people that are in those roles as part of your company. I know there's no right answer, but what have you kind of figured out from a growth scaling your business standpoint of which route you think you want to go?
Obviously it's going to really come down to the person. So, but I still think that having some of those licenses, because what I would want you can do is you have a lot more flexibility. Because if I was just a financial planner and I hired a tax person that could do all that, I'm still going to lose some of that knowledge that I might need, that I might learn along the way of becoming a tax professional and getting those licenses and doing that work myself. When it comes to hiring a financial planner, one thing that you could hire, a tax person can hire a financial planner, but the revenue that they bring in is not easily shared due to rules and regulations. So that's where you would want to really think about, you bring somebody in, but also be licensed as well, so then you can share in that revenue. Whether you want to make it as a team, we share 50-50, or, you do the business, but I'm just going to get an override because you're under my umbrella. There's those two different segments.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So as the owner of the business, you're getting all the licenses from kind of override and strategy standpoint to kind of know how everything plays together. And then you can kind of hire people that do the work under your banner, under your team. That's a really good thought. I like that.
Yeah, because in the end of the day, I want to know too much, but I want to know what's going on in the business. I want to add bookkeeping. I want to add business taxes. But if I just add a bookkeeper and I find somebody that has great experience and they know everything and they do it, I'm not going to know if it's right or wrong. I'm not going to be able to tell what's going on. So, I think the licenses are important to get so you can have some of that knowledge. But then the next step is that sharing in revenue, which that would be the biggest portion, to be able to do that, because that's going to just help you get farther faster.
Right. Yeah, I totally second that. I mean, end of last year, I got my life insurance license, and it totally opened my mind to a whole new realm of finances that I had no clue about. And so when you partner that with taxes, and it totally helps you kind of widen your view of what's possible with clients that you can help them with. Totally agree. That's a great strategy.
Yeah, absolutely.
So in everybody's story, as we go through life, there's always, one or two forces that we kind of battle against, that we're trying to overcome in a way. Whether it's like for myself, I never wanted to have like a normal 9-to-5 job. That was kind of something that I wanted to be able to, move beyond by having my own business. As you look at your story of your career, and obviously you've still got a lot ahead of you, Joel, but also, taking a big leap, like going out on your own after having a nice job and getting all that training, getting all that experience at the credit union, deciding to take a leap into having your own business. What would you say if your story is like, the villain that you're trying to overcome, or something that you've really had to deal with that you want to get beyond in your career?
The sad part is I think the villain's me. Like, I might be the biggest issue, just simply because I'm so used to being on a team. Everything I've done along the way is a team. Now, when I was at the credit union, you're on your own, but your other advisors that do the other branches, it's still a team. And I love to talk to people. They would call me and say, hey, what do you think about this situation? I would love to help the other advisors. So you still had a little bit of a team feel, even though you're kind of on your own. But when you become an independent tax advisor and an independent financial advisor, I'm sitting in my office. Nobody's just going to walk in the door randomly and say, hey, I want to give you my money or have you do my taxes. All the good is me and all the bad is me. So I'm fighting myself, trying to say, I'm so used to a team. And growing up in sports, people always said, hey, why don't you coach basketball or coach volleyball? And I'm like, I am a terrible head coach. I'm a pretty good assistant coach. If I've got a good head coach and they plan everything and they say, this is where we're going, I can fall right in and just be great support. And that's where I was always used to. So then I'm in the process of transitioning that mindset to, now I need to be the head coach, which I was never, ever comfortable doing. So now I'm trying to build a mission statement and build, like, what are the core values of this company that I now own and I'm going to be running, and have, hopefully adding staff in the near future. So that's the real fight that I deal with right now.
Yeah, I love it. And I've definitely been there myself. And I think a lot of our members can relate to that as well, because at the end of the day, you're kind of, every change that you make in your career, when you're trying to move to a different level, it's kind of like you need to become a different person at times. Like, I know for myself, like, one of the things that, it made me get to the point where I'm at now is that I would basically do any amount of work myself that it took to get the job done. And now I see, like, okay, I'm here, I have Jeff, some other great teammates. I actually have to change my way of doing things to be able to have other people do things so that I can do kind of what I need to do at the point that I'm at right now. And you're exactly right. It takes a whole, that self-discipline. And I think for what you're doing a great job of, Joel, based on what you're saying now, is having the self-knowledge to realize, right, that and identify and clarify, what you need to do differently. And I think that is such a key thing because a lot of people don't have the humility necessarily to admit that we are our own, worst enemy at times, especially when you're trying to do something new, like growing your business after working, on a team for 20 years. Really commend you on that, and have a lot of confidence you'll be doing that kind of stuff.
Well, can I add one thing? So you mentioned having becoming a different person, and in the EMyth, it talks about the entrepreneur, the technician, and the manager, and they're always at odds with each other. And so if you're the owner of a business, you actually have to wear 3 different hats that have completely different personalities to run the business. So that is correct.
And then they wonder why we're so crazy. It's because you got 3 different personalities essentially fighting to see who's going to do what on any given day and who's going to be in charge.
Correct. That's exactly
who's
right.
going to be the head coach.
Exactly. Because the technician wants to just do the work, right? They're just in the business, doing the work. The manager is trying to keep it all on the rails and running in the right direction. And then the entrepreneur is the dreamer out there leading and saying, no, here's where we need to go. Here's the vision. Here's the mission. Putting all the players in the right spot, putting all the technicians. The technician can't do what the entrepreneur can do. They're incapable. The manager can't lead either, right? So the manager is not doing the work, right? So all 3 of them. That's why there's a joke. I forget who said this, but there's a author of a book called Double Double that talks about how we are schizophrenic. If you look up the definition of like an insane person, but leave off that it's the definition of an insane person.
Mm-hmm. It's a self-employed person. Yeah, I knew it. That's what I've been saying that for years, man. See, now it all makes sense. Yeah, that definitely makes sense.
I've gone through some changes in my personality. I was, in high school and the start of college, I was extremely shy. I wouldn't talk to anybody. I knew that my expertise lied on the court. So when I would step to the court, I would have a lot of confidence. But as soon as I stepped off, I didn't. And so that's where I kind of, when I started my career in the credit union, I was the technician. And then I learned the back office side and all the paperwork. So then I started to get that confidence. And then I kind of grew in that back office to be the manager there, because I went from having the advisors telling me what to do to telling them what to do, because I had some confidence in that. And then this last 4 years of being independent has been kind of pulled out some of the entrepreneurial stuff. So I can at least go back to some experience of those 3 personalities and those 3 hats. And I luckily have some experience with each.
Yeah, and you kind of have a knowledge that identity is malleable to some extent, because I think that's what we fear, right? As you kind of level up your career, is you don't want people to look at you, right, and be like, "Oh, you changed," or like you're not real, or you're not who you were. But being able to keep your core values intact, but also be able to change how you go about things. I mean, just having the confidence, if you did that once or did that twice, like Joel just talked about, you can do it again, and so having a vision for where you want to get to, I think is when it comes to the entrepreneur side of that conversation, you could say the entrepreneur, we have to have in mind, what does this business look like when I have it the way that I want it? And that's different than just kind of making yourself a job. And so I think that's kind of the pathway that Joel's on. What for you right now, Joel, are you most looking forward to? And obviously, again, your first tax season was eventful beyond any belief. And also on the financial planning side, I'm sure you had a lot of action this year, and 2020 has been, something for the record books for sure. What are you looking forward to most about working with your clients, about growing your business?
I'll have to first say that this long tax season was a blessing for me, because if I had to do, and I don't do nearly the amount of tax returns since my first season, I think I did 75 or 80 tax returns. So being able to do them over that time frame and actually learn the software and how to put it in the software was godsend, actually. So I'm one of the few that's actually happy that the extension happened.
Right.
To smash it in all like we normally have to do.
And what are you looking forward to most? Because you obviously finishing your first tax season, you were already looking at next tax season coming up pretty soon. What are you looking forward to and feeling positive about?
I'm really excited of actually growing the business. I really want to get some other team members on, some other people on my team, that either do business and accounting for businesses, business taxes, whether it's, I've been trying to kind of connect with my local university to, even, kind of mentor and bring up somebody from the ground up, to get the tax stuff rolling and then get the life insurance license and kind of go down that path. So trying to add in somebody else on my team to help grow the business is kind of really what I'm looking for and looking forward to.
Go ahead, Joel.
Learning all the ins and outs of taxes.
Yeah, it's definitely a continuous learning process. I think there's probably going to be a member or two that might hear this podcast and actually find an opportunity to reach out to Joel, because it sounds like he's actually in very much of a mentoring phase where we're really trying to create opportunities for other people. And just like he talked about getting all the training that he did and the support as he was growing his career, I mean, this could be an opportunity for somebody to reach out directly to Joel. And so why don't you give to that point, Joel, your business information as far as like where are you in the country and how would somebody get a hold of you if they wanted to?
I have two offices in Southern California. I'm in San Dimas, California, and Redlands, California are my two offices. You can read a website, connect-tax.com is my website. So Connect Tax and Wealth Management is the name of the business. My office phone number is 951-888-8580. So if somebody's looking, the ideal situation would be somebody that's got a lot of tax experience that can share that with me and wants to then grow on the financial side. And I can help them, talk about which license to get when and help them on that side. And Jeff, just like you mentioned before of getting those licenses, I think it's when you don't have the confidence of the product that you're talking about, that's when it feels salesy. So once you have that confidence and that is the right thing for them and how that's going to serve them, that's when it becomes much easier.
Absolutely. 100%.
Yeah, especially for tax professionals, because as a tax professional, you're like, they need to get their taxes done. So as long as you can do the best job, but as long as you do the best job you can of that, you're discharging your main responsibility and trying to really help somebody. When it comes to the financial products, if you don't have the confidence, like people don't have to buy one product over another. So you really kind of need to feel like you're educated enough to get them the right solution. And I think for us as being technically minded tax professionals, that's definitely going to be a big factor in being able to effectively grow that part of business. Who helped you? Like who mentored you and helped you along the most in your career, Joel?
There was probably two people that really stand out. One was my old boss, Hani Knox. So when I started, I was that back office guy talking to the advisors, and she would hear me on the phone because she sat in the cube right behind me. And she looked at me and she's like, "Why aren't you an advisor in the field?" And I said, "Oh, no, I can't do that. I'm going to take one step back." And I had an internship with a financial advisor when I was in college. And I did some reports for him and I did some financial planning work and I sat in his meetings. And at the end of the internship of, 6-8 months, he goes, "Joel, I have to tell you, I never see you being in this business." And I said, "I agree with you because I'm scared to death to sit here and talk to people." Going back all the way to that. So I went from never wanting to do that to then my boss saying, "You should do this. You will be good at it." So she was the first person to push me into that realm. Then when I came underneath a guy, Ray Sakai, he was a senior advisor, and he I guess you could say made the mistake of taking me on board. And he was great of teaching me what to say to clients, how to talk to them, different presentation skills, talking products and, how to, this product works good with this one, but if you have this one, don't use that one. This is why, and just all the ins and outs of it. And the best thing is they let me run, and I fell down quite a few times, and they would just say, "It's okay. What did we do wrong? What did we learn from it?" And we'd move on. And thankfully, they're the two people that really got me started in the financial planning side of it.
Wow. Love that. I love that. Cause you said the initial guy that said you'll never do this, that could have stopped a lot of people, right, from moving forward.
He was right at that time, but like you said, your personality changes, and I saw that I needed to change in order to, further my career in the end of the day.
Right, right. And that entrepreneurial spirit that you have kind of overrided the doubt and the fear that you had, which is awesome. And you recognize that in yourself. And now look at, as you're growing your team, that's an amazing thing to see. So a lot of good lessons there. And it sounds like those mentors you had really encouraged you to fail and gain that confidence.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's one of the biggest things that I didn't do for a long time. And part of that, part of being a really good entrepreneur and being a good business person is failing, is doing something that you figured out that didn't work and doing something else. And that was one of the big things about buying the tax business. I didn't invest a ton of money, but I said, if this fails, I know then it wasn't meant to be. But it's obviously, I really like it so far. I'm literally like 1 year in. Like I think we signed that agreement like the beginning of October. So I'm 1 year in and looking forward to the next year.
Yeah, it was interesting, Joel, because the previous podcast that we did with Cynthia Schofer, she was kind of on the other end of the spectrum in terms of she got into the tax business in 1977. So I think that's like 23, it's like 43 years in the business, right? And so then you just completed your first tax season. But it's amazing, how people share common characteristics, because a lot of the things that Joel's talking about in terms of looking at the client's overall financial picture was actually the exact advice that Cynthia had about mentioning other things, related to IRAs, related to, somebody having an umbrella insurance policy and things like that, that maybe your run-of-the-mill tax professional is not always going to be looking at. But this kind of new breed, you could say, of tax pros, like just taking a more wider view of that client relationship, really becoming a teammate with that client, is a mentality that I see our most successful and most promising members adopting. And even if they're just starting out like Joel, or somebody that's been in the business for 43 years.
Yeah. I think especially in this environment, that kind of fluid mindset, just ability that growth mindset is super important, because there's so many changes happening. You just have to be as knowledgeable as you can, roll with the punches, take the new laws as they come, always be learning, right? So Joel, we appreciate you exemplifying that and hopefully encouraging others and listeners to follow in your footsteps. And if there's an opportunity out there for anybody that's listening that wants to work with somebody that has a true entrepreneurial spirit, that has been mentored by people that know how to lead and will also lead you well, this might be a great opportunity. So thank you so much, Joel. This has been just a pleasure to talk to you and hear your story. So thank you so much for being on with us today.
Thanks, guys. I really appreciate you guys having me and giving me a chance to share my story. And I'm always, my phone's always on. My door's always open. If anybody has questions on how to go to that next level and adding other services and all that, I'm always open to talk about that.
Very cool. Appreciate that, Joel. Thank you so much, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Talk to you soon.
Thanks, Joel. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.